Dear President Macri, it is my great pleasure to welcome you back to Davos. When you last joined us here in 2016, it was shortly after your inauguration as President of Argentina. Over the past 2 years, you have worked really hard. You have successfully initiated key political and economic transformations in your country, generating new jobs and boosting entrepreneurship. These future-oriented reforms, combined with your resilient leadership, have supported Argentina to strengthen its global positioning. This year, Mr. President, you also join us in an additional capacity as the chair of G20 Presidency. In this role, you have stated that you will lead the G20 based on the principle of putting people first. Given your commitment to multilateralism, your leadership will be critical in helping to achieve more inclusive growth and intergenerational progress. It is imperative that leaders prioritize policies for ensuring a more sustainable planet and productive workforce. President Macri, we look forward to hearing your perspectives on the current state of the world and on your vision for Argentina and the G20. You can count on our full support as you continue your important work in the coming years. Mr. President.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Børge, for the introduction. With such a good presentation, I should hire you as my next chief of campaign. But as you mentioned, only 2 years ago here in Davos, only 1 month after taking office, I shared with many of you my vision for Argentina as a reliable partner for business and as an honest broker of global politics. Today I'm here to reinforce that vision. This year's theme at Davos is creating a shared future in a fractured world. Fracture. Argentina has long suffered the consequences of that fracture because for decades we have been isolated from the world. But Argentina entered a new phase. We are now in the position to play a significant role on the international stage. In the last 2 years, we put in order our economy and the country back on track, as you recognize, Børge. Argentina is in a sustainable and steady path of inclusive growth. Every day, we make decisions that drive us towards our primary goal of reducing poverty. The economy grew 4.2% in the third quarter last year, and it's gaining momentum. Inflation fell to its lowest figure in a decade. Wages and income recovered, and social security nets expanded. Poverty and employment rates were reduced throughout the year. We look towards the future with optimism. This already is our longest period of growth since 2011. Investment is booming with double-digit growth. Today, no other country has more potential than Argentina. We are rich in natural resources, and we have something even more important than that: our people's talent and entrepreneurship. We have awarded 147 renewable energy projects, such as Parque Solar Nonogasta in La Rioja, in the north of Argentina. Once the project is up and running, it will generate enough energy to substitute imports to equal to 185,000 barrels of oil a year. We have also projects like Caucharí in the province of Jujuy that you should visit. It's a very beautiful place. And that will be the largest in Latin America. I mention these two projects only to show the huge potential that Argentina has in renewable energy. Our country also has enormous potential to obtain large hydrocarbon reserves from unconventional resources. I'm talking about Vaca Muerta, an extension of 35,000 square kilometers. It's the second largest reserve of unconventional gas in the world. We also have one of the largest reserves of lithium. Our pipeline of projects is getting bigger and bigger throughout the country. The opportunities in the mining sector are unique. In an area with the mining potential of more than 750,000 square kilometers, our country had only granted permits on little more than 1/3. Tourism is a massive opportunity, especially in the northern provinces I have mentioned to you before, where we are committed to promoting and increasing investments. During the last winter season, we had encouraging results with a historical number of visitors. And last year, we had 1 million more airplane passengers than in 2016. And thousands of Argentines have flown for the first time. Moreover, between January and September, we reached a record in terms of hotel occupancy, 15.5 million tourists. Another area of potential, as you all know, is food production. Argentina can become a fundamental provider. With exports over $25 billion, we are capable of producing food for more than 400 million people. Argentine food is present around the world and is an example of our country's reputation in terms of innovation and quality. We have outstanding sanitary and environmental standards and are ready to meet the needs of the most sophisticated consumers. That's thanks to our persistent effort in developing new technology. Argentina's human resources and innovating ecosystem have the potential of transforming the country into a global hub for knowledge-based services. I want to mention to you that 4 of Latin America's 6 unicorns come from Argentina. We are building political consensus around an agenda based on permanent reform. Argentina is leaving its populist experiment behind, as we were talking before, Børge. And avoiding an economic crisis, and within democratic institutions, something that had never happened before in the country. Last month, we began our presidency of the G20, in which we are very excited. 10 years have passed since the first Leaders' Summit in Washington, D.C. Today, unlike in 2008, global growth is stable, but it has not reached everyone, and this has undermined the confidence of many in globalization. This should be an everyday reminder that we have to do much more. The theme of our presidency is building consensus for fair and sustainable development. Argentina will bring a view from the South. We want to convey the voice not only of our country, but that of the whole South American region. We establish an agenda based in 3 key areas. First, the future of work. The G20 should help ensure that technological change will not increase exclusion or social disintegration. Education is at the center of this debate. The future will require substantial investment in training and updating skills. Second, infrastructure for development. It is crucial to mobilize private investment in order to close the global infrastructure gap. Third, a sustainable future in terms of food. As I mentioned before, Argentina is ready to make its contribution to global food security. Hosting the G20 is one of the biggest challenges in Argentina's history. We are committed to conveying the G20 with the same spirit of consensus that endorsed the ambitious agenda we are moving forward in Argentina. With the support of our partners, working together, we will strive to build a shared future of fair and sustainable development. Thank you. And now we can continue with some comments. De nada.
Muchas gracias, Mr. President.
It is all your Spanish. Muchas gracias.
You know, that's after the peace process in Colombia. I picked up a couple of words. It's great to have you back here, and we had a chance to chat a bit in the speaker's room, and we also were inspired by Churchill that once said, "The farther backward you can look, the farther forward we're likely to see." And the history of Argentina is very interesting. As the President mentioned to me, if you go back to 1910, the GDP of Argentina was almost equal with the one of the US.
Absolutely.
And if you go back to 1945, I think Argentina was one of the richest countries in the world. So what happened in between, and when will we see Argentina back in the top, and what are the reforms you have to deliver on top of what you already have done to achieve that?
Well, thank you, Børge. Before, I want to thank everybody for attending the conference, for being so supportive with Argentina. And with the help of the world, with good partners, we really believe that we are going in the path to be, again, an important global player. And I'm convinced of that because I think that we have learned of our past experiences. No? As you mentioned before, Argentina was a very rich country and still has the potential to be and to give vast opportunities to all their citizens. And the difference between this moment and other moments in the recent history of Argentina is that the changes are coming bottom up. And the citizens have understood that if we continue to be isolated from the world, what we are going to do is deepen our poverty problems. So we need to be part of the world. We are trying to come back to the world with an intelligent approach and build reliable and trustworthy relationships in long-term basis. And at the same time, as you may know, my first commitment with my citizens is to reduce poverty. I ask to be evaluated as president during these years if I achieve or not to reduce poverty. And to reduce poverty, you need to create jobs and improve education, are the two important keys that you have. And for that, you need to increase investments. And to increase investments, you have to be reliable, predictable, build rule of law, and that's the central part of our job in the last 2 years. No? And I think that we have improved a lot. We have gained back clear and truth-worthy statistics. Now you can know what is going on in Argentina. We are cutting inflation. That is the worst tax that a government can collect from the people. We are working to improve transparency. We are battling against corruption that produces an incredible inefficiency that destroys jobs. And I think that in this way, we are building a new environment, new regulatory frameworks to create new opportunities. And as I mentioned, my second theme, the second theme for the G20 in Buenos Aires is moving private sector to build infrastructure, no? to build and operate infrastructure. And for that, we have approved a very modern PPP law, and we are launching billions of dollars in new tenders, highways, energy, ports, airports, waterworks, and Fortunately, the first tenders have been very successful. Many companies from all around the world are attending the tenders, and we expect that many others will come, because I think that PPP tool is wonderful in terms of speeding up the investments and creating more room for transparency, because you don't have to lead between the contractors and the government in monthly basis. You lead only once. They get the contract, they have to build whatever they are committed, and once they finish, they start collecting their money, so that it speeds up, gains transparency, and I think that this is fundamental to develop. Every underdeveloped country needs connectivity, physical and virtual connectivity, so we're very focused on that, unfortunately with very good results, and I expect that this year will be another step forward, because we are talking about nearly $30 billion of future investments that we are demanding from Argentines and foreigners. No?
Mr. President, I think there is consensus in this room that the rule of law is a prerequisite also for foreign direct investments and doing business in countries. Predictability. This was a challenge in the previous years. International companies that had invested also saw that their assets were being challenged, to put it diplomatically. You also mentioned the fight against corruption. You have seen in your neighboring country, Brazil, that this has been a really very important agenda item during the last years, and people end up in prison because of corruption, and we're seeing also that corruption numbers are falling dramatically. Are we seeing the same in Argentina? Is there a mind change when it comes to this?
Yes, fortunately the same is going on in Argentina. Since we are in government, the transparency, we have gained incredible improvement in transparency. We went from the place 50 something to we scaled like 20 in transparency, let's say, statistics. And I think that we have to keep working in that sense. No? For that, obviously, you have to work to improve the independency and the quality of your justice. We are working on that. And I think that, fortunately, this is something that we are really viewing as a Mercosur challenge. No? And I think that what Brazil did is wonderful in terms of future, even though during the process has ended up being a big crisis. But for the future of Brazil, what recently happened will be very good, as is very good for Argentina, no? That we are getting rid of bad habits that don't help to create jobs, don't help to reduce poverty. So I'm really very optimistic about what's going on. And let me tell you that it's something, all the reforms that we have moved forward, that we had approved, had been with the support of the opposition, because we are in minority in both chambers. That shows the strength of this new process in Argentina. And in a proof of that, in all my trips, I'm in my delegation is somebody from the opposition. Today is the governor of Entre Rios, a very important governor, very important state. And in all the trips, they are coming with me because they are also part of this moment of Argentina, no? Trying to bring new investments, to create new jobs, and in that way to create opportunities from our people.
That's not the case in all capitals these days, huh? But congratulations on that inclusiveness. Also, you mentioned Mercosur, Mr. President. Traditionally we have seen Mercosur as something, a kind of trade alliance that has also been about protection. We saw the Pacific Alliance being developed that had a different view on these issues. But it seems like Mercosur is now changing very fast too. There are discussions between Mercosur and the European Union. Argentina hosted the WTO ministerial meeting in December. So is it the real reformed Mercosur we're seeing? And you will see Mercosur now also establishing free trade agreements in a very offensive way all over the world. Just share shortly your view on that.
Well, till today, Mercosur had been the closest region in the world, no? With higher protections. And we had understood altogether that this didn't help to reduce poverty. So we are moving forward to strengthen Mercosur, and I think that the agreement between Mercosur and European Union is a huge opportunity for both. We are near. Next week we are having a meeting at Brussels, and any help will always be welcome.
Forum is neutral and impartial.
Yes.
It sounds like a good idea.
No, by the way, you have good friends, so you can talk with them. If you really believe that Mercosur is also a good opportunity for the European Union, especially after Brexit. And I think that it's a natural association because South America, we are all descendants from Europe. So it should be the first important agreement before others that we are negotiating. And we are close. We are very close. I'm visiting President Macron tomorrow, and I expect that he will give me good news because some mayors tell me that the problem is always the agriculture point, and that relates everybody to France. No? So I expect that we will find a solution to that because this can be a great opportunity for both. Mercosur, this will be a good guide to continue the path of reforms, a good association. And for the European Union, it's very difficult to find a better region in terms of food security, in terms of energy, especially renewables now that we are all pushing in that direction.
I think there's going to be a lot of youngish energy in that room when you meet with President Macron. You have strong farmers in Argentina and strong farmers also in France. So it would be interesting to be a fly on the wall there.
That guarantees I will have a very good dinner, no?
Yeah. That's never a challenge in LSA, huh? Just two short questions before we wrap up before lunch, talking about food. You're seeing, talking also about Mercosur, Venezuela is, and at least was, a part of this. We are concerned about the development there. We also saw signs in your country at a certain time that reminded us a little bit about the very toxic climate you're seeing now in Venezuela. Do you see any possibility to break the current impasse in Caracas?
No, I'm not optimistic. I have been claiming for open and clear elections in the last years. I'm claiming from all the abuse that has been done by Maduro. In Venezuela, they don't respect human rights. That's not a democracy. Unfortunately, the citizens of Venezuela are suffering a lot. We are under a sanitary crisis. But unfortunately, what we see is that things are going worse and worse.
Last question. As I mentioned also in the introduction, you have the presidency of G20 this year. And you have high aspirations. What do you think, if we are privileged enough to have you in Davos also next year, what would you hope that you have achieved in your G20 presidency when you're going to sum it up?
I think that this is a very special moment in human's history, no? The technological revolution that we are going through brings up the fear. I expect that the first thing is to reduce fear. Fear drives us in the bad direction. makes us to pay attention to messianic speeches that will not solve the problems. And I think that G20 have proved to be a place in which a group of countries try to cooperate each other to increase inclusive growth. No? So I think that we have to work hard in education. We need to convince the unions to be part of the changes and not to be always against the changes, because we need to train our kids for jobs that today don't even exist. So that's a huge challenge, and we need to work together, And we need to understand that happened to the doctors for many years before, that they have to keep studying every night. No? That happens in every sector. Now we have to be ready to keep developing skills during our whole life. No? This is the new world. No? But this new world will surprise us with new opportunities. So for that, obviously, again, we need infrastructure, physical and virtual infrastructure, so everybody will have the same tools and work together. And the other issue that I want to raise is that for food security, we need to produce more food. And that means that we have a big challenge. The G20 countries accomplish more or 60% of agricultural land, and 80% of the trade in food and agriculture. 60 and 80. So we have the challenge to bring to the place a responsible land management techniques that will put in value and with responsibility the soil as a strategic resource to sustainable development and produce and food production. No? And we have to bring up that, because there is now starting a big debate in which we have to fulfill both things: battle against climate change, but produce more food.
Thank you. I'm positive that you will deliver a great G20 presidency, and also all the best for the future reforms of your great country.
I'm sure that it will be. I expect that you will all visit Argentina. In the way to Argentina, you can pass by the House of Argentina and taste some incredible, delicious sweet bread and empanadas and wines that will show you some of so many incredible things that we can do in Argentina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is no such thing as a free lunch.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated for the upcoming session.
like things were going to work. And for me, that was like, I have fond memories of this place.
She just gave you the thumbs up.
Good afternoon. My name is Arit Gadish. I'm the chairman of Bain & Company, and I'd like to welcome you to this session on creating a shared future through education and empowerment. Before I introduce our panel, allow me to make a distinction between education and empowerment. Education is a precondition for empowerment, but it's not sufficient. Education informs us, shows us how to reach for the stars, if you will. Empowerment gives us permission to do so. Just consider this for a moment. There's a lot of discussion about elite education at all levels everywhere in the world. But what really sets these institutions apart? Their facilities may be a little better, their faculty perhaps more distinguished, and maybe their teaching a little more effective. But what is far more important is the affect that they have on those who pass through them. Their graduates have come to believe that the stars are actually really in their grasp. They have got education and they feel empowered. Many, of course, will not actually be able to grasp the stars, but it will not be because they did not get the education that would have allowed them to do, or because they didn't feel empowered to try. Looking ahead, an increasingly important marker of good education will be that it inspires people to continue to learn new things. We know today that in the decades ahead, our economies and the employment opportunities they provide will change faster than they ever have. And our population will have to learn how to do jobs that do not exist today. That means our education systems will have to empower them to adapt to whatever new careers emerge. And it also means that people of all ages will have to want to and to believe that they can meet this challenge through continuous learning. When we talk about empowering more young people, we generally talk about groups who have suffered discrimination for reasons of gender, skin color, ethnicity, or sexual orientation, and I would add those held back because of economic deprivation. It's easy to see this as an ethical imperative, as indeed it is, but it's more than that. It's a cold, hard economic challenge. Worldwide, we waste an incalculable amount of human potential. Lack of access to education, especially for girls in much of the developing world, inadequate education when access is less of a problem, creativity and innovation limited by excluding diverse backgrounds and experiences, people who could learn new skills unable or unwilling to do so, and most of all, our failure to empower young men and women to reach for the highest levels and to actually achieve great feats. We cannot afford to live in such a world, and we should not wish to. To discuss all of this, we have a distinguished panel here, a group of individuals who share this passion. I'll introduce them very briefly. Dr. Fabiola Giamotti is one of the world's most distinguished particle physicists. She is the first woman director general of CERN. She's also a co-chair of this year's meeting. Malala Yousafzai, I hope I pronounced it right, is famous for having the courage to demand an education. That courage was recognized by the Nobel Committee in 2014 when Malala became the youngest ever Nobel laureate. She's co-founder of the Malala Fund, which champions every girl's right to 12 years of free, safe, quality education. Justin Trudeau is Prime Minister of Canada. A former teacher himself, he has actually responsibility for the education system of one of the world's leading nations. As a G7 host this year, he has put education and especially empowerment squarely on the agenda. Well, I'd like to start with you, if I can. Without education, empowerment is a distant dream. So let's start with access. What are the main roadblocks that obstruct access to education before we even get to talking about empowerment?
Well, thank you so much, and it's an incredible opportunity to be here among incredible people. As you already mentioned, education is a way towards women's empowerment. And what are the barriers that girls are facing right now? Well, it varies between country to country, from region to region, and in some parts you see that women and girls cannot have access to education because of transport, because there is not a school nearby their community, or because their parents do not allow them to go to school. In some parts it's early child marriages or child labor or child trafficking. In some parts it's poverty, it's because the government has not invested enough money into the education of girls. So issues vary, and I think that's what we have to remember in our approach towards solving the issue, that we have to ensure that there are quality teachers available, that there is enough schools available in each region for girls, that the ratio of schools between girls and boys is even. We have to make sure that there is transport facilities for girls. So we have to address all these issues, and it varies across regions.
Thank you. We'll get back to more empowerment in a minute. Prime Minister, what are the steps that you advocate for ensuring that all young Canadians, independent of what may hold them back, are not only educated but empowered to reach their full potential as citizens of Canada?
Well, I think one of the things that we know is that for a society to prosper, everyone has to be able to contribute their own potential, fulfill their dreams, and making sure that everyone has a real and fair chance to succeed needs to be a fundamental priority for any community, any society. Obviously that means, and I certainly brought it up in my speech a couple of days ago, ensuring that hiring, retaining, promoting more women within the workplace is essential. But as Malala said, the barriers are multiple to women's success. And it's not just a desire to do the right thing and the smart thing that'll make it happen. We need to look at all the building blocks, all the challenges every step of the way. And that's where funding education, investing in initiatives like getting more girls into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, encouraging coding, looking at the tools we're giving to vulnerable populations, marginal populations, populations that have been left out of success. Women, of course, has been a traditionally underrepresented or long underrepresented population in our success in our workforce. But there are so many intersectionalities we also have to talk about. Women of color, women from the LGBTQ community, Indigenous women, and how we're empowering, particularly in Canada, working on bringing Indigenous people, women and girls, into pathways of success so that they know that they have an essential role to shape our society. And it's not just about making sure that more women have the opportunity to succeed, because everyone should have an opportunity to succeed, although that's, of course, a good baseline. It's that when you empower women, when you educate women, the conversations change. The types of success that is built changes. Society itself improves, both with a greater diversity and representativity in positions of power and organizations, but also in the kinds of decisions that are made. So we recognize that bringing in a broad range of diverse voices, first and foremost, making sure that women have full opportunities to contribute, is absolutely essential.
Thank you. Talking about, for a moment, opportunities for women. Hard sciences. Fabiola, you really are a shining star for people who succeeded in something that has a minority of women still. What gave you the permission, quote unquote, to do so, and what would you suggest in terms of generations to come?
So I think for me, the main issue and the main, push to science came from role models. Okay, so inspiration by role models, and for me, that was a biography of Marie Curie. So I read a biography of Marie Curie when I was 17, and I was really impressed and you know, excited by her way of doing science, science being an integral part of her life, because she had her laboratory at home, so she could go in the kitchen and prepare the soup for dinner and then run in the laboratory to change the radioactive samples. You know, this science being part of your life, for me, was something really an integral part. Like you have family and friends, etc. That was great. So, and even today's role models are so important for the younger generation, for girls, for boys, for everyone else. The other important thing is that people, the young people, have to understand what will be their impact on society, on the world, if they study STEM or humanities or something else. So are they going to have an impact because they can contribute to the technology? Or for me, I was a very curious child. And so for me was being able to contribute to answer the big question on how the universe works. And for me, that was very sexy. So that's what really brings me to. But I would like to say that I'm a strong supporter of really a multidisciplinary and a varied education, to build and to form, say, well-rounded citizens, regardless of what your own job at the end will be. I give you my personal example. I have been studying humanities at high school, Latin, ancient Greek, art, history of art, everything except physics. And I've been studying music in parallel at the conservatories. And then, later on, I decided to move to physics at university level. And I could do so because the Italian education system gives access to most of the faculties regardless of the kind of high school education. And this is very important because, you know, people are too young at the age of 13 or so when they start high school to decide about their future. So we should not close career paths too early, because a few more years contribute a lot to the maturity of your choice. And I can tell you that my humanity and my music studies have contributed to what I am today as a scientist as much as my physics studies.
That is, it's a wonderful story, actually. I hope we all learn from that. We're focused a little bit on what you talked about, the developed world, and let me just get back to the developing world, where there is an awful lot of lack of access we talked about before, but also quite a number of barriers to empowerment, because as just about you mentioned, both of you mentioned, it is not enough just to educate. There are different barriers in different places for empowerment, but where most of your experiences, how do you move to actually change the social dialogue, among other things, around empowerment of women, for example, and not just education? Yet from Marlana.
Well, I think we do want to see change. And for that, education is the only way that I see for women empowerment. And it's not the job of one person. Everyone has to play a role in this, whether it's at government level or business level or NGO level or local activist level. And that is something that I have recognized right from the beginning. And what I personally am doing through Malala Fund is I am empowering and reaching out to local advocates in Pakistan, in Nigeria, in Latin America, in India, and we are empowering them so that they can bring change in their local communities, whether it's teachers training, whether it's bringing STEM skills, whether it's giving e-learning. I'm also focusing on empowering girls because they are the future, and giving them a voice so that they can speak out for their rights. They can try to speak out about the issues that they're facing. So I'm doing that, but then also governments and presidents and prime ministers, they have a big role in making sure that women can have access to quality education, they can have access to opportunities, and I think some countries are leading in that and they're stepping forward, especially Canada. Like, I'm really looking forward to G7 and the steps that you would be taking. We would be excited to hear about those, but I think everyone has to play their role. And I'm also really, I think that business sector should definitely invest in the education and empowerment of women. And this is an investment on which the return is very high. The return is high, the profits are high, and the opportunity cost is low. When you invest in a girl, you are contributing to that girl individually. She's going to have a future, but you're also impacting the country, the nation, it is helping in economic growth, it helps reduce poverty, it helps us tackling climate change, so it helps us to reduce child labor, child trafficking, early child marriages. So the benefits and the advantages are countless. It is just reminding ourselves that we have to take a step, and that step is investment in education. Donor countries, developing countries, business sector, governments, everyone has to come together and play their role.
On the Global Partnership for Education, which is such an important initiative that, Malala, you're so involved in, it's something that's really exciting. And actually, there's a bit of synchronicity to it for me, because 16 years ago, at then G8 meeting that Canada was chairing in Kananaskis in Canada, the idea that would become the Global Partnership for Education was actually launched. And what you are doing and what the Global Partnership is doing around the world right now is so meaningful. A few weeks from now in Senegal, there's going to be an announcement of the replenishment of the Global Partnership for Education. And Canada is pleased to announce that we're going to be pledging $180 million, and we're actually doubling our yearly contribution to the Global Partnership for Education. That is important, so I'm going to repeat that in French for the folks back home. Je suis très content de pouvoir annoncer que le Canada annonce on va doubler notre contribution annuelle pour le partenariat mondial pour l'éducation. Ça va être une annonce faite au Sénégal dans 2 semaines, mais on va contribuer 180 millions de dollars sur les prochaines années pour assurer de l'éducation pour les jeunes dans les pays développés, surtout par rapport aux filles, aux femmes. We know that empowering women and girls through education, empowering the developing world through education is an essential pathway towards success. And that's actually also part of why Canada set forward a feminist international development policy. We know that as we look to have the maximal impact on improving outcomes for people in the developing world, investing in women and girls not only has been done less than is fair or is necessary over the past years, but is the most effective way of making a real and lasting difference. And that's why we are so excited about the partnership on the Global Fund for Education, Global Partnership for Education. And also, the full circle part is this year we're hosting the G7. And in many G7s, there's been discussions of gender, and it's important to talk about empowering women. And in many different organizations, we talk about it and say, okay, what can we do around the empowerment of women? Well, this year, we're taking a different approach on the G7. And instead of making it as a specific and important topic, we're making it touch everything we do. We've pulled together, as I announced a couple of days ago, a council, a G7 Women's Council that will be led by Melinda Gates and our ambassador to France, Isabelle Hudon, with many extraordinary women being part of it. And their job is to make sure that everything the G7 does, all the meetings, all the commitments, all the initiatives that we partner in this year and hopefully into the future, have a gender lens, that everything is looked at in terms of how it respects, empowers, enables women to be more successful. And I think that's something that we have to look at doing in more and more organizations, in more and more of things we do as business as usual.
Thank you. You want to add something?
Well, I clearly applaud this wonderful initiative. I would like to mention that I work in an international organization, a big research center, CERN, a European Laboratory for Particle Physics, where we do fundamental research. So we run most powerful accelerators to understand the fundamental constituent of the universe. Now, CERN brings together 17,000 scientists from all over the world, representing more than 100 different nationalities. Some of these scientists come from countries in conflict, and yet they work together, animated by the same passion for knowledge and in pursuit of common goals. Now, if you look at the age profile of these 17,000 scientists, the peak is at 27 years. And about 40% of our scientists are below 35. So it's a very, very young population. And of course, we educate them we form them and train them for science, for particle physics, for big data, for computing, for technology, etc. But CERN is a wonderful place also to grow these people, to help these people understand the importance of peaceful collaboration, to grow in an environment which is respectful, tolerant, and which values the importance of diversities and inclusiveness. Actually, most of our young people do not stay in research because the number of jobs in research is limited. Typically 10% of them. The other goes out and 60% go to the private sector. So we also form them for the private sector. And if you want, if you look at their career, a recent survey shows that 80% of them are very, very happy with their current job, which is very good. And about 70% of them think that what they learn at CERN, the skills they learn at CERN, have been fundamental for finding the job, for their current job. And you know what these skills are? Analytical thinking, critical thinking, international collaboration, communication, partnership, flexibility. So that's our, you know, the skills
that is a great education.
Yes.
But for a very limited number of people, unfortunately.
Yes.
And it sounds like I'd like to go and just get some courses there right now.